Charles, you smell something?
I do. Two
The
morons.
scent of a moron, scent of a Zoran. How are you, Charles?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Hope you're well. Yeah,
Residential
I mean,
library looking excellent today.
oh, thank you very much. A lot of work goes into it, and I've been here now almost exactly 2 years. There you can hear the grandfather clock in the background. But and I've had some excellent help, and it's been fun putting this place together. I have some fine tuning to do, but it's certainly ready to receive visitors. Um, but on the son of a moron, I mean, when you look at this guy, Zoran, and then you also think about the revelations that Rand Paul has just surfaced about another moron, Fauci, then you start thinking, maybe the program, maybe we've been on the moron program. That the goal of whoever's pulling the levers on globalism has been to insert into the body politic as many controllable morons as possible so that they can continue to grift and steal to their heart's content, as they have done really since Reagan and Bush. Zoran, I mean, there's on my X feed, I clipped out this idiot co-chair of the Democratic Socialists of America who went on, I think, Fox to explain some of her program. And the program is truly stupid. I mean, we talked about it last issue: eliminate the Senate, eliminate the presidency, open borders, no prisons. You go through the list of things these people are advocating openly and winning in key races. Um, and this is just what they're going to tell you they will do now. Imagine what they will do once they get power. I mean, these are very dangerous people, and you see it in where you live and where I used to live in New York City already. I mean, it's first De Blasio, a certified moron, then Adams, an even dumber moron. Now this moron Zoran, who is, notwithstanding cautions from various people, he's whipping up crowds now that Netanyahu is going to be in New York. Um, to encourage mass protests and maybe violence against a world leader visiting his own city. I mean, the guy's extremely dangerous, very stupid. And Naomi Wolf, who is, I think, still a Democrat, maybe she switched, but she was a prominent Democrat, is pounding the X board, whatever the right phrase is, um, to say that the Iran's people stole the election, that there are a lot of election irregularities in Mamdani's actual vote, and beyond that, there are serious lingering and unanswered questions about how he obtained naturalization. Was he honest about his views? So there's nothing. I mean, when you look into the history of, for example, what Mao did in China. Um, people are fond of talking about 6 million Jews in the Holocaust. We're talking about 70 million people died because of Mao. 70 million. And some nitwit who can't even balance his own checkbook, um, whose wife, it is alleged, and I think credibly, raised money over the situation in Gaza and didn't give the money to the recipients. I mean, this is textbook bullshit.
Mamdani's
Again,
wife did that?
this is go on to rantingly, you'll see the story.
Whoa.
So this is, more of the same, more Clintonism. This is Clintonism, with a heavy dose of Mao thrown in. And on top of that, you now have the teachers union in New York City saying that they're going to remake the curriculum to promote Marx and Engels and communism. I mean, it's not a heavy lift for them to. They're probably doing it already. It's lower left, the story on Madami's wife. And people seem to embrace the craziness, right? And now we have revelations out of Rand Paul on Fauci that are no surprise to you or me. That Fauci is a megalomaniac who his team of scientists initially certainly did not believe the theory they heavily sold to the world, shutting the world down. the experts actually didn't believe what they pumped out. But Fauci is a media whore whose record, there's a brave journalist called Celia Farber, the daughter of Barry Farber, who was the original right-wing Rush Limbaugh host. And Celia is somebody I actually met 10, 11 years ago. I actually gave her, cooked dinner for in my apartment to talk about, her work, trying to expose Fauci and the AIDS hoax. I mean, I'm not saying that AIDS isn't a serious problem, but the way it was sold to the public, the disease, the consequences, and the benefits of these antiretroviral drugs was just a complete scam. Millions of people died because of it. And Celia wrote about this in Harper's. She was hounded by the pharmaceutical industry, who saw the huge payday potential of promoting branded antiretroviral drugs, locking them into the veins of millions of people who may or may not have actually tested positive for HIV, because the tests that were used to figure this all out were so faulty. She was the one who exposed this, I think, in 2006, and she's paid a heavy price ever since. But now we see in this test what is out there, and many people are on X talking about it now. It's over 1,000 pages of information. Is disgusting to anybody who has any tie. And I don't passed several AP science and math tests in high school, but I'm certainly not a scientist. But I have respect for the scientific method of testing different hypotheses and trying to come up with the best explanation that you can come up with. What Fauci sold to us was liance. It was bold bullshit that on his face made no sense, but because he had the titles and because there are a limited number of people at the, in theory, top of the scientific food chain who hand out lots of grants to academics who are grant hungry, money hungry, they were able to perpetuate a complete hoax, a global hoax, and shut down the global economy for 2 fucking years. At what cost to the children and the old people? It was disgusting display of greed, corruption, and fraud. And now the biggest question is what's going to happen. I mean, he brags in there about having, I think, 38 honorary doctorates, Holy Cross of all places, named a science building after this crooked fraud. And he's at the end of his life. What are they going to do to him now? Put him on trial? I mean, in a just world, everything this man owns and his wife would be taken away from him, and
This
both of
is
them would go to prison.
62 honorary doctorates.
Oh, 62.
That's crazy. But look, it's from McGill University, Georgetown. This is all the like MK Ultra honors.
Yeah. So this, we're in a world where the people who control the levers of power are just thumbing their noses at us. We could take this ass clown and get him in a few short phone calls. We can put him in a position where he could shut down the global economy. How much money did George Soros make off the shutdown, knowing in advance the impact that would have on governments that depended on tax revenues that were not going to be coming after the shutdown? How much money did people make on that? That's a real investigation. Let's hope. Rand Paul is kind of I would argue he's kind of a major pain in the ass, but on this one, he has been relentless trying to expose this. What is the Justice Department going to do about this? Because they need to do something.
I hope they do. It's interesting, Charles, not to change subjects, but you were talking about how, anyone, including us, when we were discussing some of the things that you're saying right now, 5 years ago, would get this broadcast basically immediately shut off and certainly deleted after the fact, channels canceled, the opportunity to earn a living as a commentator or a broadcaster eliminated and basically categorized as disinformation. I don't want to shift to this topic, but it should be mentioned. I don't know if you saw this interview that Laura Loomer did with this woman, I forget her name, Maria something. She's the biggest broadcaster in Ukraine, apparently, where Laura said that she had met with the Minister of Information, or I think she said disinformation in Ukraine, and she called for the United States to have a similar department
Ridiculous.
of disinformation. It was shameful. And in fact, I don't see how Laura could call for that, much less how she would fail to recall that we've already had that in the form of the disgraceful wretch Nina Jankowicz and the Disinformation Governance Board. It's really, I don't know what's going on with Laura. Marichka Podolko is the show that she was on, but we've already had a Disinformation Governance Board. The fact that Laura's calling for that, I don't know what to
From
say.
Ukraine.
Yeah, right.
I mean, again, this is nonsense. There's no such thing as disinformation, right? There are objective truths, there are objective falsehoods, and then there are opinions. And what you want to do, I mean, if you look back through the long sweep of history, before the invention of movable type, when information was basically in the West anyway, um, locked down under the control of the Catholic Church and scribes. You would think that with the invention of movable type, you would have an increase in the advance of the spread of true knowledge around the world. And yes, you saw that. But now with the powerful tools, I mean, the tools we're using for this broadcast, the tools that are in everybody's smartphone, uh, and other tools available, you would think that that scientific inquiry would be advanced at light speed, and that people would go back and use these tools to go over the imperfect work that had been done, let's say prior to 1970, prior to 1945, prior to 1900, and rethink, various theories and various analyses with the benefit of these tools. And you would think that school children and high school kids and college kids and retired people, people with time on their hands who wanted to do this would be encouraged to do it. The last thing you need is to suggest that some board of humans, with the biases that they have, would do a better job of separating fact from fiction than 6 billion adults using their smartphones. I mean, it's a ridiculous idea. Shame on Laura Loomer for bringing it up from, of all places, from Ukraine.
Yeah.
And what bullshit is she trying to sell now about Ukraine?
Yeah, very disgraceful. The other time I should mention that this was tried in the United States was this Committee on Public Information. What was this guy's name who was in charge of this thing? George something?
I don't know.
George Creel, the Creel Committee. So, I mean, yeah, we don't need the government telling us what's true. People should just be allowed to access facts and
Right.
draw their own determinations from evidence. I don't know what the hell's going on with Laura.
No. I mean, the governments around the world are inherently political and biased, right? You show me a government where the former leader isn't paid off one way or another, and I'll tell you that government exists on another planet, because it doesn't exist in the on Earth.
The other
So the
interesting
last thing,
thing, she asked Zelensky, she thinks it was a hard hitting interview because she asked Zelensky if he did cocaine with Micron. And Zelensky seemed nervous to me when he said no. I just don't know how much experience Laura Loomer has asking drug users about their drug use. But unless they say yes and I need help, chances are they're probably lying.
exactly. Look, I mean, to go into Ukraine and to meet specifically with Zelensky, who is, you know, who is so objectionable. I mean, if you were a different name in a different country and you described somebody who had no serious training, suspicious ties to billionaires who installed him in power, somebody who has whose wife flaunts wealth that she could not possibly have earned legitimately. She was pictured recently, I think, somewhere wearing a brooch, and that some smart people have determined was something that may have been stolen from a museum in France. the number of Bugattis and Bentleys and Lamborghinis and Ferraris that are going around the streets, either in Ukraine or in Monaco with Ukraine plates. I mean, the bribery and corruption, and here you have a guy whose term ended. He is not no longer the legitimate president of the country, and you're going to dignify that goon with an interview? I mean, it's ridiculous, and especially coming from Laura Loomer,
Yeah, it
who
was
evidently doesn't know the history of Ukraine, doesn't
shameful.
know much about history.
It was shameful. And then, she got interviewed herself in a parking garage. And I found it quite interesting that we had this segment here in the interview where they showcased what is a pretty large diamond ring on her finger and what looks like a Cartier watch to me. So I don't know, Laura, great for her. She's having an explosion in her career, money, fame, notoriety. I think it's absolutely terrible what she's doing.
Right. Yeah. And so, you know, back when I was alive as a student, in the schools that I went to, which were reasonably good places, you were encouraged not to crowdsource the truth, but to seek the truth. Indeed, Harvard's motto in Latin is truth. The people who founded Yale later didn't like the direction that Harvard was going, and so they added light, in other words, enlightenment and truth, to their motto. But that's what used to drive the people who would dedicate their lives to academia. Now they're all chasing money, and power and influence. They're not interested in the truth. As we see, I mean, we're now, I guess, probably past the statute of limitations, which is why all this information is coming out on Fauci. But we were told, I remember, vividly as you do, we broadcast about it. We were told that by Biden that anti-vaxxers were going to have a winter of death and discontent. That was an official address by President Biden. Remember that?
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a dummy.
and well, and people who disagreed with what passed for orthodoxy coming out of Fauci and others were anti-vaxxers. Let's deplatform them. Let's debank them. Let's hope they die in agony. I mean, and who was right? I remember you and I believe we went to Norway.
Mhm.
I think it was January of 2020, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
it was like weeks before the whole thing broke out.
Right. And I had previously been in the Bahamas in October, I believe it was, at 19. And when I came back from the Bahamas, I got, bad flu. And then I went with you to Norway and came back and got another bad flu right before the COVID thing. And it was, I was used to getting flu in New York City. It happens. And, that changes seasons typically around wintertime. And but when we were in Norway, there were a lot of Chinese people there. Because Norway's land of the Nobel Peace Prize and all of these international types are there. Big cooperation agreements between China and Norway, and the whole approach taken by it's okay to go on a Tinder date, but you better shut the world down. Um, and by the way, wear a mask, and you can still go on a train and a plane. I mean, it was ridiculous reasoning on the face of it. But the world fell for it. How much money was made by insiders off of it? And these same people, and is Bill Gates being held responsible? He was under indictment or trial or something in the Netherlands, and somehow they managed to put the prosecutor in prison to derail that thing in the Netherlands. I mean, so the villains who funded Fauci and others, they're still living large. Bill Gates is trying to move the planet farther away from the sun or whatever his latest ridiculous idea is.
I think just darken the sun with dust.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, because he's never passed a class in college.
Yeah.
He's never done any, and people who are smart on engineering and science and math, like Musk, have said that when they met Musk, that I only briefly met. I didn't shake his hand, but I was in touch. I mean, was in the same room with Bill Gates once. he is a moron. He's a successful moron, but he's a moron when it comes to true science. I mean, you have serious issues, I think, with the programming in Microsoft. And I've heard the same, for people who know what they're talking about. Um, and Moron apparently sells, and with all this modern technology, by all means, let's rule the planet using morons, because they're the ones who won't be able, because they're so conflicted and stupid, to catch the rampant criminality that is now going to be imposed on us.
The best thing Bill Gates ever said was when they asked him, about if he's learned anything from his experience of having dinners with Jeffrey Epstein. And he said, well, he's dead. So I guess you have to be careful. It's like, what the hell are you talking about, Bill Gates? What does that mean?
Well, and now we have the news. Initially, Gates said, I only met with him a few times. Now it's 30 times.
Wow. Holy cow.
And
It's a
I'm
lot.
sorry. Somebody I ran into Bill Gates by accident in the green room at CNN. But if you want to have a real meeting with somebody at his level, lots of people are involved in theory screening and saying, no, Mr. Gates has got this board
Well,
meeting,
you're
that
right.
thing,
Even
another thing.
just scheduling it and driving him there and stuff, like everybody would know about that.
And he has, access to his own. I forget if he has a NetJets or his own plane or multiple planes, but I mean,
Signature, I think, is his thing
it's
that he owns.
all right, signature. But the point is that guys like that who actually have their own jets or access to their own jets are really particular about that normally and want to fly in their own jets. It's like, when you have a nice weekend home, you don't want to go to somebody else's weekend home for a meal. You just stay at your own, speaking from personal experience. But on a jet, it makes no sense there's no good reason for Bill Gates to go on Jeffrey Epstein's jet. None whatsoever.
You don't think he
And
wants to fly on a 60-year-old aircraft that's notoriously noisy and fuel inefficient when he is a majority shareholder of Signature Aviation?
right, and where maybe Signature doesn't offer the topless teenager,
Right.
plan, but I mean he's a liar, And once you meet, it's interesting, when you think about a topic like a high level person who's prepared to lie under oath, Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, um, and you do that once and you get away with it. What is the most likely thing to happen? Are you going to tell the truth
No,
forever
I keep
afterwards?
doing it. So it
Right. The
probably only
bigger the
gets
lie.
easier, I would think. Charles, we only have a couple of minutes here before we make our way to the First Amendment Forum. People are going to be able to join us there on crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com and subscribestar.com and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. We still have more to discuss with Zoran in the scent of a moron. He's planning to give $1,000 to kindergartners for college. Education Week is asking if it'll work. I guess if they invest it, it's a good idea. But, there's other things that we need to talk about, like he's trying to sow chaos in New York City and, that kind of thing.
And we had in Giuliani, we had America's mayor, and here we have Mao's mayor. I mean, this guy. Well, we'll get into it in the next segment, but I mean, he's a disgrace.
He's a disgrace. So stay with us, everybody. We'll